Locked and loaded.
Can't leave my legs
So that's the legs all strapped in. And then we basically have a backpack module back here that holds basically the robot, batteries, brains, everything else to the user. It also provides some stability and support. We've got this really sweet corset because everyone loves a corset.
It's called my bustier.
Do you do that?
Yeah.
I'll get that.
Let's make sure I have this. You good? Yeah. Alright.
You go. So the system also knows, what's a safe standing position if your feet are too far in front of you. Just can't provide the power to get up, and so it yells at you and make sure that you properly do the physical therapist duties that the engineers forget to do sometimes. Okay. Good.
Yep.
On three. 1, 2, 3. Let's give a hand to our chair holder. There's only wheelchairs in this room, so he got volunteered by friends. So, I'm going to give you control and you can walk.
You gotta let me know if the light's on.
I haven't given you control.
So the robot is actually holding me up.
Okay.
And at this position, I can actually relax my knees instead of before it's like stiff. So these are some of the improvements that's happened. There's a lot more. It allows the body to be really in its tissue mode rather than in contracted mode.
No, you got it.
Can't see the light.
There you go.
Right.
Right, so first.
And the gait of this is actually shifting side to side. So I have to work with it by shifting my weight from left to right.
Always stand still. Turning on purpose. I'm going to hold. Okay, ready? Push. So we don't have a lot of runway here, but as Fernanda walks, you'll see some of her muscles kind of loosen up or start working with the exoskeleton a bit better. And her gait will get smoother and she'll need less assistance from the device because she does have some power. And so just learning how to better harness that. And doing circles on carpet is fun.
So what is initiating each of these steps?
Her body shift, her body position. So as she shifts over onto that
You just
stance,
balance.
like, yeah.
How is he able to turn?
She's doing a lot of work to turn. Basically, we're kind of relying on the split stance and the pivot right now, and on carpet that's not so good. So I think somebody might have mentioned,
Okay.
So the left leg seems to be moving a little faster. That's just to help her balance. It has like an active
like
balance.
during the swing, you're saying?
Yeah.
So some of it might be her power and how she's working with the machine right now. In a complete para, it would probably be more symmetric, but because she has some power, depending on how she's shifting and things, that's going to affect the gait. We also don't just play back a trajectory each time. We're live calculating what needs to happen. So if she's shifted more forward or something, we're going to lift the knee higher to make sure that it clears the ground. So it could be postural, it could be something. If I were a physical therapist, I'd probably yell at her and tell her to do something differently, but I'm not, so.
Can you do something that shows us it do a couple of different kind of reactions to your emotions?
In the older one, yes, it would lock up. And that was a very interesting discovery for us because in my situation and some people with incomplete spinal cord that have a little bit of power, it wasn't recognizing that. So with this model, it gives me a percentage that it's lacking. For example, if my right leg is at 60, the machine will kick in 40. And my left is at 30, I'll kick in 70. And it's also programmed where I have a lean-in position and it can lock. And that gives me the movement to go forward. And also this movement, which is a huge advance to it. This and that, rather than on a normal gait, a person's body doesn't start from a stop. There has to be some just variation of balancing to move forward to get it going. And that has been a tremendous improvement in this particular model. Yeah. And before too, they have worked where the knee flexion can be adjusted to the comfort of my range of motion. And what I've already learned from this model is that it really gives me a good full range of motion with the legs, where it articulates in the knee and also in the ankle flexion. And that stretches out my heel. That stretches out the back part. And one of the things that I was learning from Excel, before I even dawned onto this, even though I can walk with a walker, I wasn't associating my backside. And because there is a pack, the movement I can feel from the back, it's expanded my proprioception. And in that repetitive motion, when I'm not dawned into the Excel, there's the stimulation that's pretty much awakened. So things kind of gives a stimulation to my no-calories. And right now, my legs are already on fire because of that stimulation. And that's making me.
In a good way.
Yeah, very good. That's what I look for.
Yeah.
You took a big breath before you stood up for the first time.
Yes.
Is it fun to use? Is it a lot of work to use? Is it both?
Scary?
It's all of that. It's scary. Because you, as a user, this is not a device like a car, you turn it on, the key, and it takes off. As a user, there has to be a relationship. More important is that a user, a relationship into his or her own body. That's very, very important. That's what I love about working with the engineers in the clinical group, is there's that language that goes on amongst all of us, that collaboration, because there's an engineering language and a vocabulary. There's the kinesiology language that's going on with the medical biological aspect. And then there's the user whose variation goes from either very static or continuous improvement. And I have to be able to articulate and give that feedback and say, you know what, it's not feeling right, or it's too forceful. or I can feel the fact that it's not balanced for me, and they need to hear that. And then I don't want to say magic, but when it all comes together, it makes it for the smoother ride. And when you said taking a deep breath, yeah, you have to mentally prepare yourself. Because if you're from a sit position, if you're not prepared for that, you know, the machine, this is pretty powerful. And so you have to kind of fit in there, like make sure your ski boots are in the right place, strapped nicely, any equipment that you put on. You have to have that, you know, relationship. And the engineers and the clinicians are not just looking at the gear in itself, but also how that body interacts with it. So there's a lot of eyes going on. So when we walk at the lab, there's a lot of talking going on. And because it has to have an immediate feedback. I remember in the beginning it was locking up, and we weren't understanding that. And Daryl, who's the clinician, says, quit helping it, quit helping it. I said, well, I can't help it because the body got used to the movement,
Yeah.
the repetitiveness of it. My body, my muscles got all warmed up and ready to go. And it wanted to keep going, but it wasn't programmed to recognize that. So now it is.
What's the weight of
The whole device, the last quote I have is 50. I haven't actually weighed the new,
This seems a lot lighter.
so, yeah.
It's a lot lighter.
Oh, there's a lot of work to be done in terms of weight, especially if it's going to be an individual user's device. But there was some consideration taken for it, but safety and adjustability was paramount. So yeah, weight. Yeah.
How would it work if someone could walk up? Would it still have that same kind of jerkiness a little
It
bit?
depends. Yeah, definitely for somebody who, like, if I were to put you in right now, like, it would look awful. We'll just start with that. When I walk in it, I've been doing this for 6 years. I know how to work with the device, so it kind of looks a little better. You kind of learn to work with it. We now have this adaptive assist mode, though, that gives a little more flexibility in the gait and allows the user's power to be used also. And so that tends to look a little better when you're walking if you have power. So it's still trying to hold you to a good gait, but it's giving you a little more flexibility to do it yourself. And so there's kind of different results, and it really, for anyone studying control systems, don't pick a system where your human is in the loop and can provide more power than your system can. Don't do it. Yeah.
I guess mainly for Fernanda, but what sort of use case do you use it? I mean, George mentioned, I see primarily as a rehab tool, but do you use it around outside ever, or?
This, to be honest with you, this is my first public appearance outside the lab.
Okay.
But as far as the use of this, if I have this, my use of this would be to articulate the sit to stand up, the sit to stand up, kind of like my own personal squatting machine. And what I also like about this device is from the beginning, it wasn't really programmed here, but before standing up, there is a motion that I'm leaning forward that's kind of locked. It gives me about 3 seconds. Just that 3 seconds allows my lower back to get stretched from that position, because it's not something I do normally. And here, standing where I can do this, I could not do this by myself standing up, just with this side-to-side range of motion. But this gives me kind of like a scaffolding. And it allows me, and I can play with it, it allows me to work with the rotation within my knees and my hips, even in a very small incremental way.
So yeah, we basically really designed this device to be in the rehab setting, to be used by a lot of people, you know, a lot of straight line walking back and forth. That's why turning, not our strongest suit. We are doing some studies right now with people using it more independently and on a more regular basis, but it really needs some design work to really move into the home. And so we really rely on a spotter right now to maintain safety and a clinician to be in the loop.
Oh, I want to add on to that too. Usually in a conventional rehab with a walker and crutches, the person walking gets trained physically because eyesight is always down here focused. So we end up learning how to walk kind of like in a tripod position. With this, I feel like I can elevate my eyesight at this eye level and not have to depend so much on the walker to look down and walk. That makes a difference again to bring the posture of the wearer upright more so.
So can the user herself, I guess, control the gait, or when she's like getting up, can she like have the remote in her hand when she like gets up?
It is possible, and when I'm testing, like, I do that, but it's really not designed for that, so you can have accidental button pushes and things that way. So we're really relying on the spotter to initiate the stand and to change the modes and to change some of the settings. Eventually, we definitely want to get that all to the user, but haven't quite figured it out yet, so we're hiring. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
It's 5:30 now, so what I think we'll do is take a break so that the people who need to go can go now, but anybody who wants to stay is welcome to stay for as long as you want. So if you need to leave, now's the time. And let's give a warm applause for